Yeah, so Ørjan is a rather new addition to the house, and for the first time he's gonna present what he's working on, and specifically postmortem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I previously made. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Hey.
So yeah, moved there like around 3 weeks ago. I was in quarantine for a bit, but I've enjoyed my time so far here at the house. I'm going to talk about my LUDUM game, and then I'll be back soon and talk about my own game. But specifically, I'm going to talk about how we made a game in 3 days with over 100 unique 3D assets. And also, I'm going to share a few other like technical things that we did to kind of cut down on the development time. So let's just go into it. Before we move on to that, I thought it would be maybe nice to present myself. My name is Ørjan. I'm 26 years old and I'm from Norway. I worked in video games for 9 years now. And currently I'm teaching game development. Previously I was teaching game design and programming, but now I'm teaching just game development, and so like general game development. And personally, I'm primarily a programmer and a 3D modeler, but I do dabble with all aspects of game development. So we did LUDUM 46, and I bet a lot of people here did it. And our team composition was 1 programmer, which was me, 2 3D artists, 1 composer, and then 1 UI designer who was kind of working on our game a little bit on and off. And then most of you know that the theme was Keep It Alive. And before I move on to the next slide, I kind of want to tell you about our process and how we came up with the idea for our game. Because the theme was Keep It Alive. And me and Megan, we got an aquarium for this Christmas. And we thought that would be great. We got a bunch of fish, we decorated it, we had a blast. And then all our fish died. I'd rather not talk about it, so let's just move on to the next slide. So we made aquarium decorating game, or aquarium simulator. It's called Finterior Decorator, and it's about decorating your fish tank, buying new fish, and then of course keeping them alive, hopefully doing a better job than us. So this game has 104 unique 3D models that were all made in 3 days by 2 3D artists. And that is a lot of 3D assets, as you can see in the screenshots. There's quite a bit of unique assets. And I just kind of want to talk about our pipeline and how we were able to make so many 3D assets. So is there any 3D modelers here? Yeah. Ooh, quite a bit. Cool. Hopefully there's some at home. A lot of you might already know about this kind of pipeline that we were working with. But if you don't, it's an awesome pipeline. And the method that we use is usually referred to a lot as the lazy unwrapping method. And what we do is that we have 1 texture. This is the one on the left, that's our texture. And I'd say 90% of all the 3D models in our game use this texture and this material. And what we do is that we have this texture with all these color blocks, and then we make our 3D assets. And what we do is that when we UV unwrap our models, we can planar map our different UV shells, and then just move the UV shells around on the color blocks, and right away change the color of the material on the 3D model. So here is a plant, it's currently purple, and then just by moving the UV shell, it's now pink. And this way you can create some really cool textures, and you can make 3D assets really quickly. And what's also super nice is that you can get super cool gradients, which are super easy to use for your 3D model. So if you see on the texture, there's a lot of gradients here, and there's some gradients with like different values, and there's also gradients with different colors. So you can really do a lot with these different color blocks. So 104 assets, and these all needed to be data-based in our game. So this is probably a good time to talk about which engine we used, and we used Unreal Engine. I was the only person on the team that was in the game engine and doing all the game engine stuff. And for databasing all these assets, so they were compatible with our store system that's in the game, because you can buy all these different objects and put them in your fish tank. You can also move them around. So this is how we database them, and it's a very simple solution. And we just had a structure, and we put the structure into an array. And then I have a couple of different arrays. So this array is the plant array, and this is where I just put all the plants. And here you can specify which category this object is in. So if it's a plant, it's in the foliage category. And a name, a description, an image, a price, and so on and so on. Let's just move on to the next slide. And here's how it kind of looks like in the game, where you have the store on the bottom left. You can open and close it, and then all your objects will be there to buy. And to buy them, you just drag them in, and then you can select different objects, and every object has a description. And I had a lot of fun last second writing all the descriptions. I had to write 104 unique descriptions. So I also wrote all of them when I was super sleep deprived, so they're pretty bad. Yeah, need I say more? What's great about the items is that I could also use them to teach the player about the game. So here, making game tutorials can take quite a bit of time. So to save some time, I just used an item in the game. So here I just asked Megan, hey Megan, can you make a post-it note, a 3D model post-it note? So I can just put it on the aquarium. And then for description of the post-it note, I just put the controls to the game. So once the players open the game, they'll see a post-it note right on their aquarium, and they can just click it, and it'll tell them how to play the game. And there's a couple of different post-it notes. If you see here, it's kind of small, but there's a couple of different post-it notes on your aquarium. And they all teach you something unique. And what's also great is that you can sell them. So when you sell the post-it notes, that's your kind of starting economy. So you get the money to start with in the store just from the tutorial, by just selling the tutorial post-it notes. So we got a lot of good feedback on that. Yeah. Moving on. I'm going to talk about the fish. I've never done fish AI before, and I thought it was going to be kind of scary. My experience with fish AI is what they say in the E3 Call of Duty trailers when there's we have advanced fish AI, and it's holy shit. And then I realized I did it in Super Mario 64, so how hard can it be? But I decided to use physics for our fish, which also saved us a lot of time, because first of all, the fish can't just swim outside of the tank, so it'll just hit the glass of the tank. So I didn't have to worry about that. And in order to make the fish swim forward, I just added a force to the fish. So I just took the forward vector of the fish, I multiplied it by a value, and that value would be the swim speed, and then the fish would swim forward. It was super simple. And then to turn the fish, I used a torque. Angular velocity, I added to the angular velocity, and there's a lot of nodes here, but the main one is this one right here. It says target swim location, and basically I would just have to set the target swim location, and the fish would just automatically turn towards the target swim location. So obviously I have a lot of different stuff going on in the back end to tell the fish what is the target location, but other than that I just had to set that value, and the fish would turn towards the target location, and then it would do its job and just swim forward. And one place where we saved a lot of time was through skipping the whole animation and rigging pipeline. So for the fish, instead of rigging it and binding the skeleton to the mesh and doing all of that work, we just did it in the shader instead. So if you look on the top right, that's an alpha texture that the fish uses, and the white vertices will be affected by the vertex position offset that I have in the shader, and the black parts of the fish won't be affected by it. And that way I can just offset the vertices in the shader itself, and using a sine wave I can make the fish kind of look like it's swimming. And it's very quick to do. I can just throw this shader on any fish in the game, and I don't have to animate them all separately. So I saved a lot of time there. And here are the fish in action, swimming around. And here you can see they have their swim shader. So one thing that I try to keep in mind when I'm working on the game jam, game jams are pretty intense. You do a lot of stuff in a short time, and you kind of have to be dynamic with deciding what you want in the game and what you have to cut. And before I cut anything for a game jam game, I try to see if I can repurpose it to do something else in the game. For example, if the 3D artists have made an asset which I was supposed to do something specific with, but I don't have time to do it, I'll try to do something else that's quicker. For example, Megan modeled a super cool slug, Snail.
Yes.
Snail, and I was supposed to do a fancy AI for it, so the snail would move around the tank. Unfortunately, I didn't have time for that, so the snail turned into a snail statue that you can decorate your tank with. And even in the description of the snail itself, I'm being pretty honest. I'm saying that I ran out of time to program the AI, so it became a statue. And this was made for LUDUM Dare, like I said, and here's our final ratings that we ended up with. Top 50 overall, which we're really happy with.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Also did pretty well in the graphics, audio, and mood. So yeah, we're really happy about that. Thanks for listening. Here's my Twitter @ if anyone wants to follow me. Do you guys have any questions about the game?
Yes.
Yeah, Jakes.
So you stated that the fish could not swim outside the tank. However, I do have video footage of a fish swimming outside the tank. Please explain yourself.
Okay. Physics can be unpredictable, but most of the time it will hit the wall and bounce back. But you never know with Unreal Engine physics or physics in games in general. You know, unexpected things might happen. Yeah.
I think it was that we placed the fish outside the tank when we bought it.
Oh, really? Okay, there you go. It wasn't even the physics. That's my fault, then, not the physics fault. Yeah, Joe.
But I'm not sure. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you use the color palettes, right?
Yeah.
Was it a conscious decision to make sure they all melded together? So when you put all the objects in, it still looks harmonious, even though they are random.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great.
We decide on the color palette pretty early in the process, and what we do is that we have the color blocks, but we don't have to fill out the entire texture right away. So what we can do is that we can come in later and just update the texture and add new color blocks to it. What we do in the engine is that we just re-import it. So it'll still be the same texture, but updated. So we can very quickly just add color blocks to the texture.
Very good.
But yeah, we are aware of trying to make the color palette, harmonize. Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Okay, I'll be back in maybe a week or 2 weeks to talk about my new game. That's not a LUDUM Dare game, but my own.
Oh.
Okay, thanks guys.